Welcome to Gematria Vayikra. We're in Parshat Metzoro. This is Leviticus 14:1 through 15:33. Our textbook is Mysterious Signs of the Torah Revealed in Leviticus. Pick a copy up. A lot of good information here that we won't be able to cover in the video. Dear ones, our topic is Sanctifying an Unclean House at Passover. We have a word, et hanega. The Gematria is 529. And we find this word hanega in reference to a person that has cleaned their home. Now, we're not talking about cleaning for Passover here. We're talking about there has been an issue in the home. And when a person speaks lashon hara, when they do things that aren't right, there was a time when God's Spirit was so strong in the land of Israel that this would be revealed through our walls, that this leprous disease would begin growing on the inside of one's house. And so what would one do? Well, they'd have to recognize something's not right, and they would have a pretty good idea of what was not right, and they would need to go to the Kohen, to the priest, and discuss this situation. And when they talk to the priest, then he becomes involved, and he comes and he looks at the house, and then he has all the furniture, everything in the house that's not connected, removed. And you can only imagine, we want to keep our sinfulness kind of between us and God. But sometimes when you're living in a society that, God willing, is really just flowing with kedusha, with holiness, we are under a magnifying glass. And it's a very powerful magnifying glass. And so those secret sins, those things that we've said, those things that weren't right, all of a sudden the focus is so large, so huge on what we've done. It's taking out all the things in the house and the Kohen being there. The neighborhood sees what's going on. They understand what's happening. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. And so then we recognize that once we were pure, our house became impure, and then all of a sudden God help us, we slipped, we did things that weren't right, and our house is impure again. And so this is where we're at. We're in a situation where there's impurity in our house. And wouldn't you know it, we need to sanctify an unclean house before Passover, okay? And of course, at any time we have an unclean house, it needs to be sanctified. Now, the Gematria is 529, et hanega. And the answer to et hanega is hayeh da'atim. Da'at is knowledge. And datim is like the plural of knowledge. There's many possible answers to help correct this problem. We have here hanega. The Gematria is 128. And we have hakaka. Hakaka is your portion. It's my portion. It's each of our portions. And the point being is that when we have supper. I know of a family that has an adult child living at home, and the mother prepares meals, kosher meals, and so frequently the adult child doesn't come home and doesn't eat the meals. Now, the meals were prepared. They were there for him to come and eat, or for her to come and eat. And the point is that individual didn't often come and eat. Well, the Torah is the same way. We have 613 mitzvot of Torah. We've been invited to come and to partake of the mitzvot, to observe the mitzvot. And we can choose to observe them or we can choose not to observe them. And in the case when a house becomes impure because of things that we've spoken, because of things that we've done, the words that we've said in our home, they've entered the walls of our home, God help us, Kananahara, and they have started growing this leprous disease. And so we're exposed. We're exposed before God, and we're exposed before the community of our sins. And all of the things in our house are taken out. And so we're standing there and we're looking at our house and it's empty and everything is sitting on the outside. And we're thinking the home that we've worked so hard for, the home that we've paid for is going to be torn down. Oh my, it's a terrible feeling. And so we recognize that even though the Torah was there for us to observe, even though the Torah was there for us to observe and to follow, Ha'kecha, it's our portion. God gives the Torah as our portion. The people of Israel were given HaTorah, and we chose not to follow it. And we end up with an unsanctified house at Passover. So we have to go and we have to speak to the priest, and he has to give us directions about how we derek HaTorah, how we return to the path of HaTorah. And so when we see this discussion today, we recognize that sometimes even though the spirituality in our world might not be on the same level, it is not on the same level as it was thousands of years ago. And even though we don't see this SARS, these diseases of leprous diseases growing on the inside of our house, it doesn't mean that we are free from saying things or doing things that are wrong. We have to do an examination of our heart and of our life. And even though we're not exposed, and even though our furniture is not moved out, perhaps if we were in that level, that degree of holiness, we would be terribly embarrassed and humiliated. So we need to take it really seriously. We need to be very concerned about our actions and the things that we say and the things that we don't say and how we live our life, so we won't have to go through an unclean house at Passover. I want to thank you. And so we won't have to go through an unclean house at any time. I want to thank you for joining with me.